It's a mock draft Friday episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and Landon and I are going to take a receiver in round one, or will we? We're going to try at least. All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out at McCoolBCB. Landon, Fridays are always my favorite because it's kind of our fun activity. Today we're going to do another mock draft, and I'm looking forward to it. But how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Like you said, Fridays are always fun, even if we're not doing something fun on the podcast. But when you do something fun on the podcast, it's like an extra cherry on top for your Friday.
So last Friday, we did a mock draft simulation where we took Zion Johnson, the guard from Boston College, in round one. While we really like Zion, we both are big fans of Zion Johnson. We didn't really love how the mock draft turned out because of some of the options at receiver. And in fact, I don't even think we grabbed the receiver in that draft. And it just felt like we could do better. So today, we're going to do a mock draft via the Draft Network. And you and I are going to have the goal of going in, drafting a receiver in round one to see what it looks like because we believe in draft sequencing. And it feels like the Cowboys are probably doing something similar right now, right? They've got a need at left guard. They got a need a receiver. What's the best way to fill those two spots? Are you good with that plan?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of throw in there, I think, once the Cowboys build their board, they do hundreds of these mock drafts to try to figure out exactly what the best way is to get what they need and correct value for what they need, just to try to get their sequencing correct. So, yeah, I think this is a good exercise, and I'm excited to do it.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get the simulator started. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, I'll try to read off some of the names that are off the board. But it's your typical guys inside of the top 10. It's Trayvon Walker's gone, Thibodeau, Kyle Hamilton off the board, Garrett Wilson off the board, Drake London to the Eagles, Jordan Davis to the Chargers, Devontae Wyatt to the Steelers at pick 20, Jahan Dotson, wide receiver to the Packers at 22. And we're left with a lot of really good players here, but let's start with the receivers. Chris Olave, wide receiver from Ohio State. Treylon Burks, wide receiver from Arkansas. Of those two players, which one would you pick, and which one do you think the Cowboys would pick?
I would probably pick.
They had 30
Olave.
visits with both.
Yeah, I would probably pick Olave. I kind of think that they would pick Olave. I think that they like Treylon Burks a lot, but I think Olave is probably higher on both of our boards. What do you think?
I bet they would pick Burks. I would pick Olave for Dallas. I just think that with Dak Prescott's accuracy and his anticipation, adding somebody like Olave to this offense makes a lot of sense. He's basically a Amari Cooper type of player with more speed. Doesn't have the size of Amari, but that type of player. I think you're getting a Terry McLaurin or Calvin Ridley type of player, and it feels like that's what the offense is missing. But I wonder if they want somebody who's a little bit better after the catch, and that is certainly Burks here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that assessment. I honestly think it doesn't matter who we pick here because the point of the whole thing is, what we're doing afterwards, to be honest. So
just to show who else is available. So if we do look at the offensive linemen, for tackles, Trevor Penning is still there, which is
surprising.
Really,
that's shocking, actually.
Bernard Raymond is still there. Zion Johnson, Tyler Linderbaum, and Kenyon Green are all available. And of course, Landon's guy, Tyler Smith is still there. If you're curious about,
of course he's my guy now.
Well,
we'll talk about him.
Other players that are still available at different positions: Boy Mafi, David Ojabo. Of course, if you're looking for a corner, Kyer Elam. That's basically it. Devin Lloyd is still there, and that is a 30 visit. So we should talk about him. Do you think Devin Lloyd is one of those blinking red light type of players that the Cowboys would consider drafting if he fell to 24?
No. I don't. I mean, I think Lloyd's a good football player. I think he's probably on that list. I don't know that he's like head and shoulders above Olave or I mean, frankly, the blinking light to me is Penning, right? Like Trevor Penning is should not be available at 24. So if we're gonna go with the blinking light the blinking light metaphor, I think to me that's more the blinking light. Yeah.
All right, but our plan for this is to draft a receiver.
We're gonna pretend like we didn't see Penning there.
Yeah, we're gonna pretend like he went a little bit further.
Yeah.
Let's go with Olave. I think a lot of people could get behind Olave because he is pro ready. Everybody at Ohio State speaks so fondly of him. I just think he's a plug and play starter that can play on the outside or the slot right away.
I agree.
All right, let's go ahead and pick Olave. And we'll take a look at who would be available at the top of the second round in case the Cowboys want to trade up, because I do think that's an option, right? If they grab the receiver and there's an offensive lineman they love, I think that's an option. So let's go ahead and I can't really pause it, but we'll let it run and we'll run through some of the names. But let's take a quick break as the simulator is running to tell you guys about Built Bar. This time of year, almost everybody has given up on their New Year's resolutions, but not us. We are sticking to ours to eat better thanks to Built Bar. Built Bar is they're so good. They only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs, but 17 grams of protein. Best of all, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, Landon. So at the top of the second round, there's still some quality offensive linemen that were available. Tyler Linderbaum went at pick 33. Kenyon Green, pick 36. Bernard Ryman went at pick 39. Are any of those three in your mind worth trading up for? I mean, obviously, we didn't do it in this simulator, but in general, if those guys are all available at the top of the second round, would you go up and make a move there?
It's tough because there's not a lot of positional value in offensive guard, right?
Yes. I don't know if you want to give up a pick to go get a guard.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe you do now in this scenario because you're at a point of kind of some desperation, unless you have in your back pocket the idea that has been kind of whispered around a little bit of moving Zach Martin to left guard and plugging Connor McGovern in as your right guard, and convincing yourself that that's a good solution. So I wouldn't normally do it, but I would say maybe I might do it in this situation.
I would do it if it didn't cost me my third round pick. I just can't give up that third round pick to go get a guard. I basically come out of the first 125 picks with 2 players. I just don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, I would see how much I can get for all of my fifths, and then
one spot higher.
Yeah, probably so.
All right, let's go through some of the other names that come off the board here. Daniel Falele from Minnesota goes to the Seahawks at 41. Devin Lloyd falls all the way down to 43 to the Falcons. Perrion Winfrey goes 44 to the Browns. DeMarvin Leal, a 30 visit for the Cowboys, goes to the Ravens at 45. Trey McBride, tight end, goes to the Saints at 49. Your guy, Tyler Smith, off the board at 51. Nakobe Dean, 54 to the Patriots, almost falls all the way here to the Cowboys at 56.
See, again, I know you don't like him, but if Tyler Smith is really going at 51, trade up from 56 to 50, go get him. Because if you walk away from this with Chris Olave and Tyler Smith as your first 2 picks, you're in a pretty good spot, I feel like. I know you disagree, but
yeah, well, can I say what I told you pre-show? I won't even mention.
Please, yeah.
Somebody who is somewhat connected to the NFL. Is that a fair way to say that?
That's fair, absolutely.
I was complaining on Twitter the other day about the Cowboys potentially drafting Tyler Smith at 24, and they said basically not to worry about it because he's not going to be there at 24. He's going to be picked ahead of that, which I replied, LOL, that's funny.
We'll have a whole conversation about, I mean, of course, if I defend a guy's, universal draft position, he becomes my guy. But
56 is fine. I was
going to say,
if you want to say
you can't be upset about that, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
Even in the 40s, it's just at 24. I think you're asking him.
I agree.
I think a guard in general at 24 is a bit of a stretch, right? Because of the positional value. But if you're taking a guy who's never played that position before,
that's fair. That's fair.
I can get behind it at 56. All right. In this mock draft, Landon, the wide receivers that fell were George Pickens, Calvin Austin, David Bell, which I don't know if that is really considered falling, but there's more options at receiver in this mock than our other one.
That's right.
This happens the way it plays out. Now, let's take a look at the offensive line. Your offensive tackle situation: Abraham Lucas, Rasheed Walker. You're not drafting a tackle here at 56 because there's nobody available
worth drafting.
Interior offensive lineman, a little bit more interesting. Dylan Parham, the center from Memphis. Darian Kennard, offensive lineman from Kentucky. You know how much I like him. Ed Ingram, Cole Strange. How do you feel about any of those options?
I like Kennard. I mean, I think Kennard would be a solid pick here. And again, I think if you walk away from this with Olave and Kennard, you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself. The thing that scares me about this gambit, right, is that I think you showed it, right? Sometimes you do this and there's the wide receivers are available at 56. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you do this and the guards and tackles are available at 56. It's kind of hard to tell which way it's going until it starts going, right? So, again, the kind of, the thing that you're really hoping for is that you get to 56 and someone like Darian Kennard is there still, or Tyler Smith fell, or, I got to say, I was shocked to see that, what's his name? The UCLA guard went
Sean
at
Ryan.
He went like at 40 something.
47 here to Washington.
That's crazy to me.
Also mentioned Jarmir Salyer from Georgia, who I actually like quite a bit. I would be
the Georgia guard. Yeah, I like him too. Actually,
he goes to Pittsburgh here at 52. So you had a couple guys go off the board. But I'm fine with Kennard. But is there enough guard depth here that you're okay waiting to the third round?
Well, no, because I think what you witnessed right here is that all these guys ran in like the 10 picks before you, right? Like if you were at 46 or 40, if you scroll up to like 43 right before, like just in those 10 picks, you lose like 3 guys, right?
Linderbaum, Green, Raymond. Yep.
Yeah. Since round 2, you lose Linderbaum, Green, Raymond, you lose Ryan, you lose Smith,
Salyer,
Nicholas Petit-Frere, who I actually think maybe they could someone that could slide into guard at some point if they needed him to. So I think these guys, like I don't know that you can wait a lot longer. You may wait until the third round and lose your opportunity. We're looking at the list here, but Ed Ingram, you mentioned, is another guy who's available. Yep. Cole Strange is another guy who's available. Those guys could all be gone by the next time you're next. Is Jurgens a guy that you want to like? Is Jurgens a guy that's going to solve your offensive line issue? Like, because here's the thing.
Because I think he's a center.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? It's like, what are you trying to solve here? Are you trying to get a starter? Are you trying to get your 5th offensive line starter, whether that be a center or guard or whatever, and you shuffle things around? I don't know that you're getting one past this round. I don't know that any of the guys that you think that you could plug in could come in and start this year past the list of guys that we have available to us right now. So I would take a guard now.
And which one would you take?
I would probably take Kennard.
Okay.
I think Parham I like Parham more. He's too small though, and I think he's just a center. So I think Kennard is a guy that could be a very good guard. It's a projection a little bit. He's only ever played tackle as far as I know.
Yep.
But he has the body type for it for sure.
Just to be transparent, let's look at some other positions just to see if there's anybody else that's so much better available. Quay Walker, linebacker, Georgia. Christian Harris. I know we weren't big fans of Christian Harris from Alabama. I think that's a pretty easy one to let go. Chad Muma.
That's surprising, honestly. And
Travis
Jones. Yeah.
Brian Asamoah. I think he should be a 3rd round pick, so that's not too surprising. Drake Jackson is interesting a little bit. and then all of our tight ends. Nick Benito, I like quite a bit, but the only one for me really, or the two would be Muma and Travis Jones. But are those guys so much better at their positions that you can ignore guard for one more round?
Quay Walker is, I mean, he's
He's a
generally
freak.
considered a first round linebacker. So, I mean, that's I think the closest to a blinking red light, but I wouldn't say that any of these are necessarily guys that I have to have.
So let's go ahead and take Kennard. I think you and I would be feeling really good about the way this draft starts if the Cowboys go Kennard or Olave Kennard, right? 2 day one starters, 2 guys with a ton of experience in big conferences. It's hard not to like the start of that draft, right?
Yeah, honestly, at that point, like if I'm looking at it from the perspective of a Cowboys fan watching the draft and trying to enjoy himself, I could breathe a little bit, right?
Yes,
Okay, we
yes.
got what we need. Let's see what they do with the rest of these picks and let the draft. Now they can really, really let the draft come to them.
All right, so we are at pick 88, the 3rd round pick for the Cowboys. Sam Williams off the board for the Eagles, of course.
That hurts.
Jeremy Ruckert off the board to Atlanta at pick 82. Muma goes to the Chargers at 79. Channing Tindall to the Browns at 78. And Ingram goes to Baltimore at 76, so it's a good thing we didn't wait. Drake Jackson off the board. Brian Asamoah off the board. It's tough. So let's look at some of the best players. I think in round 3, the Cowboys have some spots that they would be looking at, right? I think tight end is one. I think defensive tackle is one. Edge is another. Linebacker. But none of them are so pressing that you have to draft them right away, right? Let's look at
I think
some
you're drafting basically, the best player that you've got on your board at this point. I think, like you said, we have some kind of general stuff we would like to hit, but we don't have a specific attack order anymore. The 2 top needs are taken care of. We'll get value for the rest of these guys, right?
Top player left on the board is Isaiah Spiller, somebody who the Cowboys have met with multiple times, a running back from Texas A&M. I have a hard time believing they draft him here in the 3rd round. It feels a little early, but it's worth mentioning. Let's go to tight end. Cade Otton from Washington, Craig Dulcich from UCLA, Jake Ferguson, Jelani Woods from Virginia, still there. Charlie Kohler still available. A lot of tight ends. Any of those guys appealing to you here in the 3rd round?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I like Cade Otton. I like. We haven't really talked about Jake Ferguson or Greg Dulcich very much, but those are players that I like a lot. Ferguson is kind of like Ferguson is a lot like Cade Otton, to be honest. I mean, they're a blocking tight end who has some receiving skills. Cade Otton, Ferguson, and the kid from Ohio State, Ruckert. They're all kind of in the same vein, right? Honestly, the fact that Jelani Woods is there and rated so lowly makes me wonder if I don't know that we could get away with this in real life.
No, probably not.
But I wonder if we could see if there's someone who's better at the top of the draft board for this pick and then wait until next round to take Jelani Woods.
All right, let's look at interior defensive line. Names are pretty much, it's not great. It's Matt Mathias from Alabama, John Ridgway, who I actually watched last night from Arkansas, decent player. Double O from UCLA, your guy. Haskell Garrett, defensive tackle from Ohio State, who the Cowboys met with, I believe, a couple days ago. Edge, Majay Sanders from Cincinnati, a 30 visit. D'Angelo Malone, Isaiah Thomas from Oklahoma, another guy that they're very interested in. Anybody there for you?
I mean, I like several of these guys, but I think everything I've seen so far is like, I like those guys. I just don't know that I like them in the 3rd round. But
it feels like all these guys are 4th round options, right?
Yeah, and honestly, you may not have a choice here. Like, you may just be at a spot where all the guys are kind of 4th rounders at this point, just from what you're seeing. Yeah, I mean JoJo Doman's number 1 linebacker available. I like JoJo a lot. I mean,
that feels high though for him.
That feels high, yeah, for me.
Corner, I don't think you're going to draft a corner that high. And then safety, Tyson Anderson is somebody that they like a little bit. Nick Cross is very athletic and very smart. But my guess would be tight end because I don't think they'd want to wait 45 picks at that point, right? You probably take a Cade Otton or a Jelani Woods or somebody just because you don't want to miss on those guys.
The thing is that kind of makes you crazy though, right? Is that Auden is clearly the pick here, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing about it is that, like, it's you see all these tight ends that you like or that you would be acceptable for you, and there's still going to be some available in maybe your next two picks.
It's just you're just not going to have the choice of the guys you want, right?
Exactly. Which, when you talk about draft sequencing, you can still get the tight end you want, and probably not that much worse a round later. You wish that there were better choices overall at 88 to kind of entice you to pick a best player available. That's just not happening, unfortunately. So
yeah, because Kohler's going to be there in the 4th round, and I like Kohler almost as much as I like Otten, but I think they probably like Otten's blocking a little bit more. He can probably help right away, which is probably why Otten is a very likely pick here in the 3rd round.
And Woods is also a guy that I think, as far as the Cowboys' plans, like, he could develop into more than what Otten is. So you have Schultz for this year. Maybe the plan is to wait around, get someone like Woods who they can hopefully develop into becoming more than what Schultz is. But yeah, as it stands right now, I think Otten is the clear pick just because he's the best player available and he plays a position that you're looking at drafting. So,
all right, we'll pick Otten. We'll come back and we'll do the 4th round here just to see who's available. But in the meantime, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews. For the golf tournament, BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Landon, so we're not going to do the million 5th round picks that the Cowboys have. Let's just look at the 4th round and see some of the guys that are available. What positions are a little bit deeper here on the Draft Network simulator at tight end? A lot of those guys are off the board. Jelani Woods is off the board. Your top tight ends
didn't make it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Charlie Kohler, who is there, Jalen Weidemeyer, Grant Calcaterra from SMU. Not great, but I mean, I feel like if you do like Kohler as much as I do, he would have been a good pick there.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't bring him in, but I think Cole Turner is another guy who's decent-ish. I wouldn't mind picking here. So yeah, it does look like there's some tight ends here.
You got wiped out a little bit though.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't what I expected to show up in the 4th round.
Yeah, because Stolcich and Ferguson both went early in the 4th round.
Back to back.
Yeah, very, very quick right there. So let's look at some other positions that we haven't addressed yet. Interior defensive line. And this is the problem every time we get to interior defensive line is you get to the 4th round, just not in love with any of the guys that are left. Matthew Butler, Jermaine Lowell, John Ridgway, Double O from UCLA, Thomas Booker from Stanford, who's probably more of the 5th or 6th round pick. I just don't love those options.
I watched, listened to a very interesting interview with Thomas Booker. So I think he seems like a very fascinating guy, but I don't know if I'm taking him here at 4th round. None of those guys necessarily.
No, those guys are all 5th round picks to me.
Yeah. What else we got?
D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky, very athletic. Isaiah Thomas from
that
Oklahoma.
might be interesting, right?
Yep. Michael Clemens from Texas A&M. He is somebody that the Cowboys met with a couple days ago. Extremely long. Production's pretty good. An older player, but if you're looking for a defensive end that kind of checks all the boxes that Will McClay and Dan Quinn like, Michael Clemens is a guy to keep an eye on. I actually compared him to like a more athletic Joe Jackson. Remember Joe Jackson who the Cowboys drafted a few years ago? Of those names, which one do you like the best?
Isaiah Thomas is interesting to me, for sure. I think D'Angelo Malone was Malone a visit?
Not that I know of.
Isaiah Thomas probably is someone that I think the Cowboys are probably interested in. I know they talked to him. So he's someone, and I think he's a good value there for what we're talking about. What else is there available at just overall? And see if there's any.
Linebackers really drops off. David
geez.
and I from Houston is somebody that they have a 30 visit with. This feels a little high. Corners and safeties is not great. I mean, this is what you expect by the time you get to the corners and safeties. It's pretty picked over. You could go back to the offensive line if you wanted to. Zach Tom is probably an interior guy in the NFL. He's still there. I like Luke Gadecki quite a bit from Central Michigan. He was the right tackle I thought he was outstanding during the season. Interior offensive line.
Cam Jurgens.
Cam Jurgens is still there. Now, this is where I'm good with Cam Jurgens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But can you afford to take another probably center-only prospect?
No, maybe not. Especially, I mean, the thing that we don't know is how they are feeling about what Farniak is right now. So, and then that maybe kind of will brush them off from getting a pure center prospect at this point, right? Because why bring in a guy who only plays center when you've already got a guy who you drafted kind of in this close to this area that. Well, he was a 6th or 7th round, but a guy who can play both guard and center, and he's been in your system. I think you maybe are looking overall at the rest of the group at this point.
This is the spot I think I would go for if I was the Cowboys. And it's running back, because this is where it gets really deep. Hassan Haskins is a 30 visit for the Cowboys. A really big running back from Michigan. Reminds me a little bit of Joe Mixon. Pierre Strong is like a Raheem Mostert type of player. Yeah, he's very small, but he is incredibly fast. Jerome Ford is a good player. Zamir White was a starter at Georgia. Tyler Goodson was really productive at Iowa. Abraham Smith was really good at Baylor during the Senior Bowl and during the year. Anybody here do anything for you?
I know Tyler Goodson is a guy that a lot of people think has a lot of skill. So I'm good. Haskins makes sense. He was a Cowboys visit, so that makes some sense. Do you have thoughts on Damian Pierce? I don't really. I've heard things about him, but I don't know that I'm very.
I didn't love him at the Senior Bowl and during the combine. I think there's better options.
He split time with another running back at Florida, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other positions you want to say?
Let's just see what the overall list is, right? Just so we can see it.
Our punt god.
Well, we already got a punter, unfortunately, but punt god is there. I mean, to me, Isaiah Thomas seems like a very natural pick. I also would be on board with taking one of those running backs, just because I think this is a good spot for that value. Outside of that, I don't know that there's anything that's like jumping out at me, really.
Well, I'll just mention Isaiah Thomas, 6'5", 267 pounds. 80-inch wingspan, long arms, ran a 4.70 40-yard dash. That's a pretty good time. So
265, that's good.
Yeah. He's just one of those long athletic guys that you draft here in day 4. And hopefully down the road he can become Dorrance Armstrong, right? You're looking for somebody that can fill a 3rd or 4th defensive end role and maybe move up the depth chart further on in his career. But again, in the 4th round at pick 129, it's not a bad option.
Absolutely not.
All right. Let's take them, because I feel like that's a very realistic pick. So our picks to finish this out: Chris Olave, Darian Kennard, Cade Otton, Isaiah Thomas. Feels like a very likely draft for the Cowboys, like something that they could certainly accomplish. If they came out of the first 4 rounds with this, how would you feel?
I'd feel good. I mean, I think after those first 2 rounds, getting, solid players to kind of fill those roles that you want, it sort of gives you a nice high floor to the draft that you like, and I think that after that, you feel free to not scramble and you can just allow it to kind of fall to you. And looking at the draft, thank goodness, because it didn't necessarily fall the Cowboys' way all the time. It felt like a lot of their picks were getting taken right before them, but it was a lot more palatable, because you got what you needed your first 2 rounds, and you just let the rest of the draft fall.
Yeah, I'd feel really good about it. 2 day 1 starters, tight end that can contribute in year 1 as a blocker, and then a rotational edge guy in Isaiah Thomas. I mean, considering where you're drafting, again, when you're drafting at the bottom of every round, you're not going to hit home runs. You just want guys that can come in and fill roles. And I feel like Olave and Kennard and Otton are all big-time players from big-time schools that hit all your athletic testing thresholds. I'm good with this. This feels like a very good B-plus draft.
I agree. Yeah, it's not a home run, because you didn't necessarily have the luck of having a huge prospect fall to you at any of those spots, but you made solid contact with the ball on each one of these picks. You got a solid pick for each one, and I think especially when you talk about those first 2 picks, making a solid double is good for those 2 picks. And then if you can do that after that, you can kind of swing for the fences a little bit more down the road if you need to.
Yeah. So I think after comparing this draft to the other draft where we took an offensive lineman early, I just think this one fell much better. And maybe that's just luck. Maybe that's just the sequencing part of it. Drafting a receiver early, you're going to just have more guard options that you like in round 2 than receivers that you like, right? So I've done a million of these mocks, and every time I draft a receiver in round 1, while that's not necessarily my favorite pick, I end up liking the draft as a whole better.
I agree. Yeah, I think the problem is that the way that the situation is with the roster, you have needs. You weren't able to necessarily fill them the way you wanted to, the way you normally do in the off season. I think you may have options on the other end just in case that doesn't fall the way you want. But if just looking at this over and over again, when you draft a wide receiver in the first round, you just have a better chance at fulfilling what you need of your roster than when you try to get a guard, even if you feel better about the guard than you do about the wide receiver in the first round.
100% agree. So let us know what you guys think. Do you like this mock draft? Would you like us to continue doing mock draft simulations? What kind of scenarios would you like us to play out? Please let us know. You can leave a 5-star review and tell us the scenario. That would help us out a lot. Follow the show on YouTube. You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of Mock Draft Monday. I'm sure we'll have some Cowboys news that we have to touch on. So have a great weekend. We'll see you guys next time.